Thank you so much to everybody at Insight for getting this set up. We are excited to dive in for our webinar, Winning the War for Talent with Your Employer Brand. And the takeaway from today should hopefully be that we are going to help lots of folks here hire better quality talent more quickly, help lower cost per hires, and help build an amazing talent brand for organizations. So this is a collection of best practices of what other high growth companies are doing and what we can do to be super successful with our employer brand, with our recruitment marketing efforts, to at the end of the day in this very competitive market, win the war for talent. So thank you so much for joining. My name is Jason Nazar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Comparably, and we are an employee review platform. We founded 4 years ago, and we are a fast-growing company ourselves too. And my background is that I'm a serial entrepreneur, and this is the 4th company that I've started. I sold my last large-scale venture-backed business, DocStock, to Intuit in 2013. I write for Business Insider, Fortune, Forbes, Wall Street Journal. I'm an investor and on the board of a lot of companies, primarily based here in Southern California. We are a Los Angeles company, actually 2 blocks from the beach in Santa Monica, California. And I bring up my background really just to let folks know that I've been, for the last 20 years, building large-scale teams, trying to build great company cultures, great business performance. And I've often tried to understand how I could best hire top quality talent, and it had just gotten harder year after year. And one of the main reasons to start Comparably is that we wanted to give companies a better and more fair alternative to showcase what it's really like to work at their organizations. And so I think often organizations' talent brands are sometimes unfairly harmed. And certainly what people see and research online makes a huge part of the decision they make of what organizations to join. And so we're going to share our best practices of what we've learned as an organization from my 20 years of experience building businesses and from lots of amazing customers that we have and what they do to do successful employer branding, recruitment marketing, including some of the great portfolio companies at Insight Partners. So why does employer brand matter at all? Well, most of you probably listening today know this as well as I do, which is that the vast majority of job seekers are researching companies both before they apply for a job and certainly before they accept an offer. And so a 75% plus of job seekers will consider a company's employer brand before applying, and 80% plus will do research on both Google and social media. And the key takeaway here is that job seekers trust employees at these companies dramatically more than the companies themselves. And so it's our responsibility as talent leaders to be able to, A, first make sure that we are managing our employer brand, that we take an active and proactive approach to what that brand is and realize that it is either accelerating our ability to close the best quality candidates or it is preventing us from being able to close those candidates. And implicit in this is that we have to more effectively leverage our own employees' experiences, their voices, their social networks, their reviews to be able to influence the next set of job seekers that we want to have come join our organizations. So just a couple of key stats to really drive this home. 9 out of 10 candidates say that they're going to apply for a job when it's an employer brand that's actively maintained. 50% of candidates say they are not going to work for a company with a bad reputation, even for a pay increase. And this doesn't just affect new hires. Employee turnover can be reduced by 28% by investing in employer brand. And in fact, candidates that have a maybe negative opinion of an employer brand are showcasing that their opinion changes after they see an active engagement from that company about what it's like to really work there. And so all the statistics show us what really our common sense lets us know up front, which is that virtually every person that's thinking about joining our company is doing research on us. If you think about the time that any of us take to research where we're going to go for dinner, well, how much more important is it where somebody's going to spend the next 3, 4, 5 years of their life and their professional opportunity, 10 hours a day? And so managing this brand is now a responsibility of all organizations that are especially going to be actively hiring. And just to drive this point home, there was a tweet put out from Lemver that Bamboo HR found that 94% of their candidates, 94% of all their new hires were researching their company on a Glassdoor or Comparably before they joined their team. And then just to speak to the retention aspect for a little bit, because employer brand affects retention a great deal, a majority of people are saying that company leaders are not doing enough to retain them as an employee. Almost half of people, it's pretty evenly divided between men and women, are saying that companies are not doing enough to retain us as an employee, and an employer branding is and can be a really important factor to face that. And so there are a couple key problems that I think most of us are dealing with, and let's just talk these through. The first is that we need to hire better quality candidates more quickly. It's not about getting more candidates in the door. It's about getting the right candidates and being able to decrease that time to hire. The second key problem is that many of us are working in great companies where just not enough people know about what we're doing as a top employer. And the fact of the matter is the majority of attention goes to the Netflix and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world and all the extraordinary perks that they provide. But there's so many amazing companies that have been built over the last 5, 10 years. And the fact of the matter is not enough talent in those local markets know about why your organization is so fantastic, and how do you break through that noise and reach more potential candidates, letting them know what's really unique and special about your organization. The third key problem or challenge or opportunity is that we all know that our best source of referrals come from our own employees. Yet it's difficult to turn our team into ambassadors. They're busy with their own jobs, with their own lives. And so how can we more effectively leverage the talent networks of our own team? And how can we enable our own employees to help more easily and effectively bring in high quality referrals? And then a fourth issue is that I think while most of us know that employer brand and recruitment marketing is vital, it's time consuming. It can be hard to measure and really know as a business leader, well, is this driving an ROI? And they often have budget constraints. And I think that we need to figure out how we can be effective employer brand and recruitment marketing, and most importantly, create a common scorecard and language of how we can show to all of our business leaders and CEOs and CFOs why this is having a extremely valuable ROI and why it should be continued to be invested in. And then I think there's a fifth problem that many of you will probably identify with, which is that a lot of employee review sites are inaccurate and can unfairly hurt employers' reputations. And anytime a company's public reputation is primarily dominated by people that are no longer at that organization and maybe had an axe to grind, if that's the majority of feedback that any new job seeker is seeing about an organization, then it just doesn't tell a completely fair and accurate picture of what it's really like to work at those organizations today. And so we're going to address each of these 5 problems and how we can, with our employer brand, continue to win that war for talent. So let's talk about the high-level strategy, and then we're going to go into specific actionable tactics that each of us can do. So the first thing as far as a strategy for our employer brand is that we have to be authentic. Job seekers can sniff out and tell and have a very good radar for when there's a bunch of marketing or corporate collateral trying to show that a company is better than it is. And what's so powerful in the job seeking experience to attract and get that top talent to actually take your offer is just to lead with real vulnerability and authenticity. So what kind of experiences are your employees having? What's great about your organization? What still needs to be improved, right? I think any company that tries to over optimize for the fact that, oh, everything is amazing here, it's perfect, we have no flaws, may create more skepticism in the talent market rather than just leading with, well, here's what really makes us unique and special, here's what we really have to still improve upon. And the key thing about that be authentic strategy is to simply leverage your real employee feedback. Help new job seekers understand the kind of real experiences and real benefits that your current team is having from their own voice. And the more effective that we can tell those stories to our new set of hires by leveraging what's great and fantastic and unique from our existing team, that's what's going to drive that authenticity. The second and maybe most important point on this entire list is don't lose talent due to an unmanaged reputation. The fact of the matter is every single business today, especially high growth companies, have a talent brand. They have a reputation in market of what it's like to work for them as an employer. That's driven by what people see when they do Google searches about the companies and land on employee review sites. It's driven by what people see in social media about those organizations. It's driven by the anecdotes that come from existing and former employees. It's driven by any recognition or awards in press. And so your organization has a talent brand. And that talent brand is either costing you candidates today, turning people away because they're not seeing things that are positive, engaging, and truthful about your organization, or it is supercharging your ability to close the best quality candidates. And an amazing example of this that we'll go into a little bit more is HubSpot, which is an organization that's doing great business-wise, has a great culture, but maybe more importantly on top of that is that they go to great lengths to showcase in their talent brand what's so unique and special about their organization. And it meaningfully helps their ability to close the best quality candidates faster and for less cost than other organizations. The third key point here as far as strategy is to optimize your job post and talent channels. The vast majority of people that we hire at some point are going to interact with a job description that we put out many times online these days. And whether they see it on our career site or on platforms like Indeed or LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter, those job posts and your career sites really need to be marketing channels. There are so many different jobs that folks apply to, and talent turns over so quickly. They stay at organizations so much less longer than they did 10, 20, 30 years ago, that we have to treat all of our talent sourcing channels like marketing. We are in the business of trying to find and influence the best quality candidates to come to our organization. And so it's not enough anymore to put up a job post with, here are the skills we're looking for, here's what we want in your background, here's all the perks and benefits we have. That's not going to cut it. We have to go to the next level and think of our talent sourcing channels as real marketing. And so how do we add in testimonials from employees? How do we showcase any third-party accolades and awards? How do we show the real data of how you stand out versus a competitor? How do you quickly, with pictures and images, leave people with a feeling of why it's going to be special and unique to work at your organization? We have to treat our job post and talent channels as marketing channels. And fourth is that our social brand is vital. Candidates are looking up us as employers on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. And it's not enough anymore to simply put out content from the corporate level. that's just table stakes. That's just, okay, great. We see that you're managing your talent brand. But often what these job seekers are doing is they're seeing what real employees are saying about their organizations on their personal channels. And so they're doing keyword searches for organizations, and they want to see the real information, what people are really saying. And so managing our social brand is not enough anymore to do just the corporate level. We have to be able to enable our own team to be promoters, which leads into our fifth point about the strategy of how to leverage an employer brand to win the war for talent. We have to turn our team into our ambassadors. We have to be able to enable the hundreds and thousands of employees that work for us to become ambassadors of our company, to easily share their stories of what's unique and special, to be able to point to third-party accolades, to be able to tap into their network, and to share their real, authentic employee journey and experience and what the interview process was like, because that is perhaps the single most influential piece of content that other job seekers are looking for and that persuade them to join our organizations. So let's get now into really specific action items, right? What are the specific tactical things that we are going to do to affect winning the war for talent? Maybe most importantly is that we have to own our brand in Google searches. And simply what I mean by that is that thousands of people are searching your organization on a weekly basis by putting different search terms into Google. These are your customers, these are your job seekers, these are key stakeholders. And the content that's showing up is either accelerating our goals to hire better quality talent and influence customers, or it's leaving people with a bad taste in their mouth. And anytime that we don't actively manage our brand in Google, we are turning a blind eye to the single most important and largest source of traffic that people go to understand what it's like to work at our organizations. And so just realize and take stock of, if you yourself were putting a bunch of different key terms in, what's the content that shows up? And what's important here is that often third-party sites will co-opt your brands to drive to their own pages that is not true or reflective of what's really going on. And so what I mean by own your brand is make sure that as thousands of people put these search terms into Google every single week about your organization, that it's taking to content that's accurate, that's reflective of what's really going on in your employee experience, that gives you the opportunity to capture those candidates as leads, that gives you the opportunity to close those folks that have already applied as candidates. And there are 12 terms that make up the vast majority of what candidates search for about your organizations. So let's quickly go over what these are. Like, we've done all the keyword research. These 12 terms, again, make up 90% of the traffic that your job seekers will put in to understand what it's like to work at your organization. So if we took Netflix as the example, they would type in things like working at Netflix, Netflix culture, Netflix reviews, Netflix benefits, Netflix leadership, Netflix mission. There's a great insight portfolio company, Sherwell Software. We'll use them as an example later on. So people would be putting in things like Sherwell Software salary, Sherwell Software diversity, interviewing at Sherwell Software, Sherwell jobs, Sherwell office photos, Sherwell CEO. And the key thing to do is do a Google search yourself for each of these terms for your organization, and take a look at the content that is showing up in the first 1 through 5 spots in Google, which is what's going to drive the vast majority of clicks. Is that content that is a positive reflection of your organization? Is that content that is a fair and accurate reflection of your organization? Is that content that you have some fair measure of control over to change it, affect it, use it as lead gen for candidates? Is that content that you would feel comfortable pointing candidates in your talent pipeline to go to influence them to actually accept an offer at your organization. And so one of the things that we do at Comparably is that we work with companies to make sure that they own these 12 employer brand terms, that we can either help power them to create content on their own website and blogs that show up first, second, and third for these terms, or if their own SEO isn't strong enough, that they can use Comparably and real honest employee feedback to point to content that is much more fair and accurate representation of what's really happening at the organizations where they have a bit more control over that content. And simply making sure that as job seekers look for these terms, that it's taking to pages that are a fair and accurate reflection of what your company culture is, and that you have the ability to engage with those candidates on those content pages, may be the single most important tactical thing you can do to leverage your employer brand to win the war for talent. The next key thing is to add employee reviews on your career site. Your job seekers are going to your career site to see what it's like to work for you. That's where all your jobs are posted. We have to treat this as marketing. So for example, we have software that enables organizations to simply syndicate their own employee voices on their career sites and websites. So here, Vector Marketing puts on the home page of their website real scores and awards that they've won from Comparably. And for example, one of our customers, Trimble, on every single job post on their career site syndicates their real employee reviews and culture scores and awards right where it's affecting candidates where they'll choose to apply for a job. And so it's important that we treat, again, our career site and job posts as marketing channels. Reference accolades in your job posts. So as you are writing those job posts, if you've won an award, if you stand out and be featured as a top organization, put that in the job post. Let candidates see why you're a great employer. If they don't know about you as an organization, if you're not a household name, when they, in a company like Trip Actions, can showcase that they've been recognized as a most innovative company on Fast Company and a top startup on LinkedIn, and that they won an award for happiest employees on Comparably, this makes a big difference. This influences candidates to say, oh, okay, well, I may not have known about this company, but they sure sound like a fantastic organization from other third-party folks that I know and I'm aware of and trust. And so let me take a second look at this before I just pass over to the next application. And then it's really important to leverage employee feedback to influence candidates in your pipeline. You want to be able to, during an interview process, just in the same way that you would have somebody sit down in a room if they were applying for an engineering job with other engineers on your team and get a chance to see and meet and talk to all the fantastic folks that are currently in your organization, why they work there. This is something that we want to think about how we leverage and scale and productize. So for example, one of the things that we do in Comparably is we generate job seeker reports where you can easily pull across any department, engineering, sales, finance, product design, the experience that your existing team is having, how they rank versus other organizations, the values of the company, the awards you've won, the perks and benefits. So this is real collateral that you can give to hundreds of people in your talent pipeline at any organization. But whether you use our software or not, the key takeaway here is to really leverage that employee feedback in a systematic, scalable process to influence as many of your job seekers as possible. Photos, photos, photos. A picture says 1,000 words. Use as many photos as possible on your job posts, on your career site, on any third-party platforms like Glassdoor or Comparably or LinkedIn. This influences candidates so much. Take the time to invest in having a professional photographer come into your office, take great candid photos, take photos of the team gatherings together at every outing that you do, at every team event. Make sure there's a group of people that are responsible for taking fantastic photos and videos, and let this lead as part of your culture experience. We can write all these different things that are great about our organization. We can try to put out all this different collateral. Sometimes none of that is as effective as people just seeing happy folks doing things that they love and in an environment that is engaging and exciting, and show people your offices. Many folks are working in great, exciting, creative office spaces and high growth companies. I've been to many of the offices of the Insight portfolio companies. They are an exciting, fantastic vibe. Let candidates see that up front, because it's so different than so many of the other office environments they may end up working in. Respond to your employee reviews. Candidates are saying that they are influenced by what they see organizations write about their experience. And job seekers take with a grain of salt what folks say, just in the same way that we know how to filter out bad reviews. If we're looking for a restaurant, we generally know how to filter out bad reviews from an employee and say, okay, well, maybe that person wasn't the right fit for the organization. It seems like they had an axe to grind. I'm going to discount that a little bit. They discount it even more when they see a response from the organization or a talent leader or the leader in that department about what the context of the situation was. And so we allow folks to do this at no cost and Comparably. This is a best practice to do on Glassdoor as well, which is respond to these employee reviews. Now, the secret of this is to not get defensive. You certainly shouldn't go into the specifics of the situation, but you always want to either encourage positive reviews and say, thank you so much for leaving this. This is what we care about. We're focused on these areas, whether it's diversity or inclusion or hiring the best talent. And then similarly, if it's a negative review, just state the point of view of the organization and the employer and give somebody a well-rounded picture. And in many cases, that goes a long way, not only in changing their opinions, but your candidates. Job seekers will tell you in the interview process, one of the reasons that we applied to work for you is because we saw that you had an engaged talent brand. We saw that the organization was responding to reviews. And so the simple fact that they did that, regardless of the content that they were writing, influenced us to want to apply for this job. One of the things that influences candidates to actually apply to your company is seeing that you have an actively managed employer brand. And one of the main ways to showcase an actively employer brand is to simply leave responses to reviews on employee review sites. Get your team to promote you on social media. This is a big deal. How do you turn your team into your promoters? One of the key things here is to be able to give them content that they can easily use. Don't make them think of the content. But this is extremely powerful at every level, and especially at the leadership level. And so, for example, Mark Benioff from Salesforce is the CEO of Salesforce and founder, is often out there publicly talking about different awards he's won and the Comparably awards and how they're so proud of this and why more people should apply to the organization. John Ledger from T-Mobile is often talking about the different accolades and awards that he's won. And this is a way not only to have currency to attract new talent, but to build morale with your existing team. And part of what we see is organizations that are engaged with us at Comparably will see 3 times the amount of their team actively engaged in promoting their organizations. And the key is to give valuable content to your team that they can use as a starting point. The next key thing is to publish your mission, vision, and values, and even your employee value proposition tagline statement. This is one of the key search queries that people are looking for about your organizations. It is especially important with millennials. And so if there's not an easy Google search that somebody can put in the first or second result they're easily able to find your published mission, vision, or values, then you're missing a massive opportunity to influence a whole set of candidates, especially candidates that are Gen Z and millennial, that often say the mission of the organization is as important as their compensation as to why they joined that company and why they picked that job. And so one of the things, again, that we do at Comparably is make it really easy for folks to publish that content and have it Google. But whether you do it on your own or different third-party provider, it's vitally important in today's market to have your company mission, vision, and value easily publicly accessible, any jobs to find, and placed words. This is a really important thing that influences a lot of candidates. So going back to that second point in our strategy, which is a lot of us feel and know that not enough people know about us as great employers. Well, how do we affect that? How do we their opinions? One of the most powerful ways to do this is to get involved in different best place to work awards. There are lots of folks that do this. LinkedIn does this now. There's a company called Great Place for a long partners with Fortune. Glassdoor has their awards. 16 awards that we do 4 times a year and get syndicated with major media partners. And when companies awards, extremely powerful way, use that collateral on your own website, on sites, career sites, to influence, showcase these awards front and center. And especially with Comparably, we have awards, for example, like Best Companies for Women, Best Companies for Diversity, or Best Companies for Professional Development. And those are awards that are meant to be able to influence candidates that we're trying to add. And measure your employee net promoter score. Score is simply the question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer a friend to work at this organization? So it's a derivative of the main net promoter score, the exact same way where you have and people that are past generations that have ENPS are doing really, really well. It's harder to rank high for ENPS than it is for NPS. You want to use this as your benchmark. This is the simplest way that you can easily see and measure how your company culture, employer brand is affecting not only external job and internal team. All right, so now let's get to one of the key things that we talked about. We actually measure return on investment. Different areas. So how can we go to our senior leadership and make the case that the things that you're doing for employee marketing are actually making a difference? More quality candidates, and it's helping the war for talent. Here is that an investment is different than an investment in recruiting. Recruiting is, hey, I'm going to put more websites and job boards and drive as many candidates. Employer brand should be measured around the 3 characteristics. The first is your increase in candidate conversion, and quality of your candidates. And so if you had over the course of a week, and in situation A before your brand, you were converting 5% of them, and then in situation those employer branding efforts were making a difference, and also being able to measure the quality of the candidates that are coming in. The second key metric is the rebrand. And so this is a combination of the amount of social media views that you get, plus the amount of trust that you get as a talent leader, plus the amount of content about your organization. And part of what we do with the Comparably product is give people a simple scorecard of what the views are in each of these channels. And then, as we just talked about, the last key point is your employee net promoter score and any potential. So what's your ENPS, right? How are your employees answering the question? How likely on a scale of 1 to 10 to refer a friend to working here? That gets and lead to amplify your existing team as talent promoters. And then investment that we make in employer brand should also be measurably affecting retention increases and folks being happier and staying longer in our organizations. And that's the scorecard that I would recommend using as hard ROI metrics around employer branding. And so just to share a couple of things, your employer brand is in lots of different areas. The scores that you get, for example, on Glassdoor, Indeed, or Comparably show it's really important that the kind of reviews and ratings that you get on employee review sites are all different. And a couple key things that we try to do at Comparably is help organizations build the most fair and accurate reputation. Actually give companies the option and ensure that feedback comes from verified current employees, because often get reviews left by people in the company or are clearly from folks that just simply have an axe to grind when it's not reflective of real experience that most employees are. And again, we do like to work with everybody to go to comparably.com/awards. No cost to join and enter. These are awards that we do, again, 4 times a year. And so you can come here to comparably.com/awards. You're able to see the schedule of awards that we've got here. So for example, the upcoming awards that we have are best places, best CEOs, best companies for diversity. It's simply driven off of the feedback on your Comparably page. There are certain thresholds to be able to read. And then we want to help you empower your team to be these promoters. So we provide the content your organizations can use. Because we give every company a gender score and a diversity score, we're meaningfully amplifying folks' D&I efforts. And then we help organizations be seen at the top of Google searches for those key terms. And we'd love to have an opportunity to engage with anyone out there that wants more support around their employer brand and recruitment marketing. We're incredibly thankful for your time today. We're easy to get a hold of. This is Jason Nazar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the company. You can find me on Twitter at Jason Nazar. You can email me at jasonnazar@comparably.com. And if you would like to discuss further any more strategy or tactics, or if you'd like to see or understand how your organization could benefit from leveraging Comparably as a platform, then please feel free to drop us a line. And as our great friends at Insight said up front, we're going to do a special discount for all the Insight portfolio companies. So we're looking forward to talking to you. And we're going to pause here on the content and see if there's any questions. And thank you all so much for your time today. If you're listening to this after the fact on a recording, thank you for listening and sharing with your team. And we're very familiar with how difficult and challenging it is to build an amazing organization with a great culture and be able to continue in a market as competitive as this to recruit the top and best talent. And so we want to be your partner to help achieve and excel in those goals.